So let's talk about why we should communicate continuously with the people we have a relationship with. That is not only in our family or spouses or something like that, that is inside companies as well. So the relationship with our peers, the relationship with our clients, the relationship with our manager or our employees when we are a manager. And that is extremely important to understand, that we need to nurture those relationships in order to gain some benefits out of that. So we need to stay actually in a state where we can act. What I mean by that is we don't want to be surprised. So let's go with the example of the manager and the employee, and we are now the employees. If we don't ask our manager for feedback, we basically don't invite that manager to provide us feedback, which means that it is less likely that we actually get positive or negative feedback. It is especially unlikely to get negative feedback because no one likes to provide negative feedback. So the manager might postpone that feedback into the future to some other point, but you don't know about that, you don't even sense that, and you don't act upon that. So you think everything is fine, but it isn't. And that is the reason why we should know about that. And if we invite, so we ask for feedback and really tell there is no problem with that, I'm totally fine to receive negative feedback because I want to improve upon that, then it is more likely that you actually get this type of feedback. And if you have that feedback, you will become an acting person. And in that very moment, the other person is actually providing you some feedback. In that moment, you give that person respect by asking for their opinion about you. So this person helps you, and humans tend to like people who they actually help. And vice versa is actually the same, but it applies. So the more you act like this, the more you have those conversations, the more you create these bonds, ergo these relationships. And those are extremely important to actually stay in charge of your life. Especially in the business world, it is extremely important. I know that many developers don't really want to discuss those kind of things with their managers because it's one of those jobs where everything is so uncertain and hard to understand, and it's hard to understand even for you. So maybe don't ask for feedback. And I have that very often when I talk to other engineers about those kind of things, that there is this fear of asking for feedback and fear of receiving feedback. And just to be very honest now, that is the same on both sides, right? And that's why I've often been taken by surprise with very negative feedback, because this feedback basically compounded in a negative way already, and you will receive the whole package instead of being able to already act upon the negative feedback early on in the process to actually do something about that and actually form a good relationship where you don't need to be afraid into going into the next meeting and this might be a surprise again. So there is no surprise because you expect to have a good conversation again with a lot of feedback where you can build upon. So is that basically a recipe for success? No, it's not. You can still have another person who's simply not liking you or have other reasons you can't know or should not know, and you will suffer some problems there, but that is actually less common, or actually not very common at all. But most situations are actually solvable by communicating to other people. So that same applies to the relationship between entrepreneurs and clients, between employees and family members. So the more you talk with people, the less problems you will have, because the more you know, the more you can act upon. The less you know, the more you really need to react in a situation where things might already be compounded to something you don't want to have. And that is actually more burden than you might be able to take in that moment, which leads you into that spiral of being a reactive person. And that will eventually lead to a burnout situation because you actually lose control. When you only react, you are not in control anymore. And that is a recipe for a traumatization in the end, because that is not how humans can be healthy. Believe me, I speak here of a lot of experience. I lost that kind of control often myself, and the very best I can do in that moment, or I could do in that moment, is to actually communicate with the people and act. So always act, no matter if it's a communication thing, if it's a thing we need to do something, act, do, and don't postpone things. In order to have that with people, you need to invite them to tell you what you need to know. You need to provide them space to do that. So be very open about that and make sure that you actually don't want to hurt someone, you don't want to get the job off someone, you just want to improve and improve the surroundings. You want to bring your team forward, right? You want to advance things. You need to show this. And for that, you actually need to have feedback. This is actually not how traditional systems work in companies, neither in Europe nor in America. So it's a little bit like, actually, I don't want to admit that I have downsides, and by that, I don't want to talk about those things. But if we want to achieve something in the future, in these days, with the today's zeitgeist, we should rethink that and try to be more open and really think about our own downsides in a way that we actually want to do something about that. Ergo, we acting upon that. And for that, we need to ask for feedback. Same goes for continuous delivery, continuous communication. As software developers, we should practice and communicate continuously. So I hope that helped. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, comment, and of course, like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.